You know what's wild? You'll spend more time adjusting your phone wallpaper than reprogramming your self-destructive habits. Let that slap you for a second. We obsess over algorithms, filters, and fantasy football lineups, but ask someone to sit down, face their internal chaos, and change the way they think. Suddenly they're too busy. Meanwhile, Karen is manifesting her dream life on Instagram while you're manifesting anxiety and back pain. Here's the truth bomb. Your life is not hard because the universe hates you. It's hard because you've trained your body to be a puppet of your past. The real addiction isn't nicotine, alcohol, or Netflix, it's you. You are addicted to being yourself, and not in a cute self-love way, in a self-sabotaging, trauma-on-repeat kind of way. Welcome to the war zone between who you are and who you're pretending to be. Let's go. Breaking the habit of being yourself is not just a catchy title, it's a direct insult to your comfort zone. Written by Dr. Joe Dispenza, a chiropractor turned neuroscientist turned spiritual trailblazer, this book is a psychological sledgehammer. It smashes the illusion that you're just a personality, when in fact, you're a walking bundle of rehearsed thoughts, stored trauma, and secondhand beliefs. Dr. Joe doesn't come from some TikTok motivational influencer club. He's an educator with a solid background in neuroscience, epigenetics, and quantum physics. Yeah, the spooky action at a distance type science that's too real for your 9-to-5 logic. He's known for appearing in the documentary What the Bleep Do We Know? And authoring Evolve Your Brain, but this book, this is where he hands you the grenade. Now, fair use disclaimer, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not a bootleg audiobook. This is your wake-up call, your mirror held up to your bullshit, and maybe, if you can stomach it, your actual opportunity to evolve. We're not here to parrot the book. We're here to dissect it, challenge it, and throw it back at you like a philosophical Molotov cocktail. So buckle up, take notes, or don't, but don't you dare say nobody told you. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. The Quantum Awakening. You ever seen someone complain that their life is going nowhere while doing the exact same shit every single day, like clockwork, and then cry when nothing changes? Yeah, that's the hypnotic loop of modern existence. Let's get brutally honest for a second. If you're still waking up, scrolling your phone, getting hit by a tsunami of anxiety, running on caffeine, reacting to the world like a trained rat in a cage, guess what? You're not living. You're just reliving, rehearsing, replaying. Yourself isn't even you anymore. It's a hardwired Frankenstein stitched together by bad habits, childhood trauma, and a Pinterest board of false identities. That you is a habit, not a person. And here's where Dr. Joe Dispenza comes in. Not like a soft-spoken guru patting your back, but more like a neuroscientific hitman gunning down your limiting beliefs. According to him, your personality is a recycled playlist of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And spoiler alert, that playlist sucks. He doesn't ask you to light a candle and chant your problems away. No, he shows you how reality, the gritty, quantum-coded reality, is actually responding to your inner world like a loyal but psychotic genie. You think crap thoughts, you get crap experiences, you feel unworthy, you summon people to treat you that way. You're literally broadcasting a signal 24/7, and that frequency is carving your fate in real time. Let that cook. Your thoughts have a frequency. And the universe, the quantum field, is your giant echo dot waiting for instructions. This isn't woo-woo. This is wave-particle duality 101. Quantum physics already nuked the old-school idea that you're just a meat sack reacting to the world. According to the observer effect, the mere act of focusing your attention changes the outcome of reality. Translation: you're not just in the simulation, you're coding it with your damn thoughts. So if you still believe that life just happens, then congrats. You're the problem. Not your job, not your ex, not the government. You. Dispenza doesn't sugarcoat it. He says if 95% of who you are is subconscious programming, and you keep thinking the same thoughts that lead to the same feelings, that fuel the same behaviors, then you are biologically living in the past. You're emotionally addicted to your story. Worse, you call that addiction me. Now here's where it gets wild. You want to change your life? You can't just think new thoughts. That's the rookie mistake. You have to feel them, marinate in them, rehearse a new reality so hard your body starts believing it's already happened. Because if you only think about change, but your body is still hooked on survival hormones from 2008, nothing will shift. You're not coherent, you're chaotic. And here's the sucker punch. Most people won't do this. Why? Because they'd rather be right about their misery than risk being wrong about their potential. They'd rather suffer with familiarity than evolve with uncertainty. We're all basically walking energy fields. Just think meet radio towers, broadcasting the same station every day. I am Stuck FM. But you could be tuning into wealth, love, creativity, peace. The frequency exists. All of them do. But to align with a different future, you must become a different self. Mentally, emotionally, biologically. That's the quantum leap. Not some Marvel superhero trick, but the very real ability to break up with the old self and romance a future you haven't even met yet. But beware, the old self will fight to survive. Your body, addicted to cortisol and chaos, will scream, twitch, sabotage, lie. It will tell you it's too hard, too weird, too fake. That's not your intuition talking, that's withdrawal. And here's where the rubber meets the road. Are you just going to intellectually masturbate to self-help books and YouTube videos? Or are you going to do the work, emotionally rehearse a future so deeply that the universe has no choice but to comply? Because if you don't, you'll keep waking up in the same body, reacting to the same triggers, repeating the same patterns, wondering why nothing ever changes. And it won't, until you do. Key takeaway. You are not your past. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind them. And with the right intent, you can rewire your brain, reinvent your identity, and collapse a brand new reality into existence. But you'll need to kill the current version of yourself to do it. Mourn it, burn it, bury it, then build something better. Favorite quote, if you want a new outcome, you will have to break the habit of being yourself and reinvent a new self. Transcending the physical. You ever hear someone say, "It's just the way I am"? That's a defense mechanism disguised as a personality trait. I'm just not a morning person. No, Karen, you're just chemically loyal to your snooze button and your unresolved childhood rage. I can't change. I've always been this way. That's not authenticity. It's addiction. Let's get something straight. You are not a fixed creature molded in cement. You're a programmable biology suit, a meat machine, and you've been running the same glitchy, outdated operating system for decades. One that lets your environment, your job, your car, your bank account, your social media feed dictate your internal state like you're a thermostat with no settings of your own. That's not life. That's slavery. And worse, you're the slave and the master. Dr. Joe Dispenza doesn't care if you're offended by that. In fact, he's hoping you are. Because only people who've built their identity on environmental feedback loops will rage against this idea. Think about it. If you wake up and the first thing you see is your cracked phone, your stress-drenched calendar, and a sink full of dishes, your brain immediately reboots yesterday's programming. It fires the same neural circuits, triggers the same chemical responses, and reaffirms, yep, still me. Still this miserable, anxious, overworked version of me. So how do you change? You learn how to ignore your damn surroundings. You stop being a mirror and start being the light. Because if you keep responding to your environment the same way, congratulations, you're creating more of it. You're building it deeper into your neurobiology. You're hardwiring your prison bars. And don't even get started on your body. That thing, it's not innocent. It's been hijacked. It's now your subconscious mind in motion. You don't choose to get anxious when someone criticizes you. Your body does. It memorized that script years ago. It fires the chemicals before your prefrontal cortex even wakes up. You think you're reacting to life, but really, your body is just executing old trauma like a macro on repeat. Want to know how messed up it is? Your body actually craves those familiar chemicals. Stress hormones, guilt, shame, because it's addicted to them. If you try to feel joy for too long, your body starts screaming like a toddler who just lost their iPad. Where's my cortisol? Where's the panic? Why do we feel good? This isn't safe. Now let's talk time. the illusion that traps almost every well-meaning person with a vision board and zero progress. You say things like, "One day I'll change." Here's the kicker: if you're emotionally living in the past or anticipating the future with fear, you're never actually in the present, which is the only damn place change can happen. We live 70% of our lives in a stress response, chemically remembering the past or forecasting catastrophe, and then we wonder why nothing evolves. You can't create a new future while staying emotionally married to your past. That's like trying to run a new program on a corrupted hard drive. Dispenza's work tells us that the moment you detach from your body, your identity, your environment, and your concept of time, that's when you become pure potential. That's when the real you finally enters the chat. But to do that, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to override your body's whining, ignore your environment's whining, and give time the middle finger. This isn't positive thinking BS. This is biological rebellion. You are chemically conditioned to be you. And changing that means withdrawal, literally. Your body will throw tantrums, scream for the familiar. That's when most people quit. They interpret discomfort as a sign to stop, not a signal that they're breaking the cycle. But if you stay in that fire, if you hold your new state, emotionally rehearsing a future you haven't lived yet, your body starts adapting. It stops signaling for the old self. It starts believing you. And the universe, that invisible, intelligent quantum field, starts responding in kind. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So if your emotional baseline is still dictated by your ex, your bank account, your tight hamstrings, guess what, genius? Your future will look exactly like your past. You're not stuck, you're predictable. And predictability is the enemy of transformation. So what's the play? You kill the need to react. You become emotionally independent. You meditate not for peace, but for power, to separate from the script. You stop living by cause and effect and start living by causing an effect. That's how you transcend the environment. That's how you override the body. That's how you collapse the illusion of time and punch a hole into the future. You stop being a body in a place, stuck in a timeline, and start being a consciousness without limits. Now that's freedom. Key takeaway: you are not the result of your environment, your body, or your past. You are the author of all three. When you break the emotional addiction to what has been, you give birth to what could be. You are the scriptwriter, not the character. Change your state, and your world has no choice but to follow. Favorite quote: "To change is to be greater than your environment, your body, and time." From survival to creation. You ever notice how people wear stress like it's some badge of honor? I've got deadlines, I've got bills, I haven't slept since Tuesday, and you're like, okay, but why are you bragging about being half dead? You're not a soldier, you're not a hero, you're just chemically drowning in the illusion that suffering equals productivity. Dr. Joe Dispenza breaks it down with painful clarity. Most people don't live, they survive every single day. They wake up in reaction mode, cue the cortisol, scroll the notifications, react to the news, get triggered by their partner, worry about the future, regret the past, and somehow convince themselves that this stress response is just how life works. That's not life. That's a biological freakout on loop. You're not living, you're firefighting your emotions, you're not building a future, you're dodging ghosts from your past. Survival mode is addictive because it's familiar, and anything familiar feels safe, even when it's destroying you. But when you're constantly in survival, your energy is focused outward, your senses are heightened, your body is hijacked, your mind is racing, and you know what you can't do in that state? Create, heal, evolve. You want to manifest a better life while biologically operating like you're being chased by a lion? Good luck. Creation requires coherence. Survival is chaos. You can't be both the artist and the emergency alarm. Choose one. Let's talk biology. Dispenza lays out how your brain has three major structures: the neocortex, the thinking brain, the limbic brain, the emotional brain, and the cerebellum, the habit-forming unconscious brain. The first one is where you think, the second is where you feel, and the third, that's where your automated hell loop lives. Most people never evolve past the thinking to doing stage. They learn something new, Try it for a few days, then quit the second it gets uncomfortable, because becoming someone new isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's about embodying it. You don't become anything until your body knows what your mind knows, until you feel it so deeply that the new self becomes the only self. Thinking alone doesn't change you. Repetition and feeling do. But here's the real kicker. Your body doesn't even want to change. It's addicted to your emotional past. It loves being pissed off, being anxious, being overwhelmed, because that chemical cocktail is what it's used to. And the moment you try to feel calm, focused, or, God forbid, empowered, your body panics. It says, nope, that's not us. That's not safe. And it pulls you back to what's known. So you meditate for one day, you feel amazing, you journal, you declare new beliefs, and by Tuesday, you're yelling at a car for going too slow. You're back to binge watching TikTok like your soul isn't begging for change. You relapse into survival, not because you failed, but because you didn't stay long enough in the unknown to become the new version of yourself. Dispenza makes it clear. Becoming is hard. Change isn't magical, it's mechanical, it's rewiring. You literally have to fire and refire new neural patterns until they override the old ones, until the memory of who you were gets deleted by the repetition of who you now are. And that means showing up for yourself every day like a spiritual assassin. No exceptions, no excuses, no permission slips from your ego. You don't wait for your circumstances to change to feel better. You change how you feel to create new circumstances. You become the cause, not the effect. You stop needing external validation because the internal world is now your compass, not your leash. The shift is brutal, it's boring, it's lonely, but it's also the only way you stop being a puppet of your past and start becoming the creator of your future. You want proof this works? Ask the thousands of people who've healed incurable diseases, who've defied diagnoses, who've built million-dollar visions out of pure intention. They didn't beg the universe. They became the version of themselves who already had what they wanted. They acted from the outcome, not toward it. So here's your choice. Keep reacting, stressing, coping, apologizing, doubting, or start rewiring, rehearsing, becoming, and owning. But don't lie to yourself. You can't do both. You can't be a victim and a creator. You can't live in fear and be magnetic. You can't repeat your past and expect a different future. You're not stuck. You're just familiar with the chemical signature of failure. Let it go. Key takeaway. You are biologically designed to change, but you've been psychologically trained to repeat. Moving from survival to creation means overriding your addiction to the known and conditioning your body to trust a future that hasn't happened yet, and doing it daily until it's the only reality your nervous system recognizes. Favorite quote: to truly change is to think greater than your environment, to act greater than the familiar feelings of the memorized self, and to be greater than the time you've spent being stuck. Bridging the gap. Let's rip the band-aid off and talk about the one thing most people love to pretend they're doing, but almost no one actually understands. Meditation. Not the I downloaded a mindfulness app and forgot about it after 2 days kind. We're talking about meditation as a weapon, a rebellion against your own mental programming, a full-blown jailbreak from your predictable identity. If that sounds extreme, that's because it is. See, what most people do when they sit to meditate is just glorified daydreaming. They close their eyes, try to relax, and maybe think about lunch halfway through. That's not transformation, that's procrastination in lotus pose. Dr. Joe Dispenza isn't here to make you feel spiritual. He's here to make you dangerous, to yourself mostly, because your enemy isn't out there in the world. It's the part of you that keeps dragging your attention back to that ex, that deadline, that diagnosis. You've trained your brain to fire the same neural loops so often, they've become your identity. And your body? It's memorized every emotion you've ever used to survive. So when you try to sit still, close your eyes, and go inward, your own nervous system stages a mutiny. That's what he calls the gap, the moment between who you've been and who you're becoming. The uncomfortable, awkward space where your old self fights for its life and your future self hasn't fully arrived yet. Most people run from this space, But if you stay there, if you breathe through it, if you refuse to let your emotions make your decisions for you, you start bridging the gap. Here's where it gets brutal. Your thoughts, not sacred. They're just leftover code from a life you said you wanted to escape. Your emotions, most of them are chemical hangovers. Dispenza challenges you to dismantle that entire system, not with force, but with frequency. You stop thinking like your past, stop feeling like your past, and start tuning your brain to new electrical patterns that match a future you've only glimpsed. You stop being addicted to certainty and start becoming fluent in surrender. This is where meditation stops being soft. You're not just visualizing, you're rewiring, you're overriding years, decades of conditioning. You're tuning into a dimension that exists beyond the five senses. You're accessing the quantum field, not through belief, but through coherence, thoughts and feelings aligned, brain and heart on the same page, body in a state of trust. That's the formula. And here's the hard part. It doesn't work if you're faking it. You can't visualize success while secretly feeling like a failure. The field responds to your state, not your wish list. The universe doesn't care what you think you want. It listens to what you feel you are. So what does Dispenza teach you to do? You become no one, going nowhere, in no time. You peel off your identity like a snakeskin and sit in the void, not to get something, but to become someone new. You stop identifying as the body. You stop responding to your environment. You ignore the ticking of the clock. You do the unthinkable in a hyper-distracted society. You become still, and if you can stay there long enough, you'll start to feel different. Not because you changed your circumstances, but because you finally stopped letting your circumstances change you. You realize the mystical isn't out there in a cave in India or buried in a book. It's sitting right between your ears, in your spinal cord, in the electromagnetic signature you broadcast every second. Your job is to tune yourself like an instrument until your internal state is so elevated, so tuned to possibility, that your outer world has to catch up or shut up. The field is always listening. The question is, what are you really saying? Key takeaway: meditation isn't about escaping life, it's about becoming life. When you learn to tune out your environment, transcend your body, and ignore time, you create the space for the future you to enter. Until you master the internal world, the external will keep mastering you. Favorite quote: when you are truly in the elegant state of creation, you are no body, no thing, no time. You forget about yourself. You become pure consciousness. The meditative journey begins. Let's just say it. Most people treat transformation like it's a weekend hobby. Like you can just throw on some yoga pants, light a candle, sit cross-legged for 10 minutes, and suddenly your decades of trauma and identity crises are cured. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work like that. You've been chemically married to the old version of yourself for years, and now you want a divorce with zero discomfort? No. The real work starts when your ego starts to panic. That's when you know you're in the right place. What Dr. Joe Dispenza does in this section isn't hand you a miracle, he hands you a map. But here's the catch, you have to walk it. No shortcuts, no good vibes only cheat codes. This part of the process is about preparation. And no, not the kind where you color code a planner or binge another self-help podcast. This is the part where you learn to become unfamiliar to yourself, to the version of you that's been quietly sabotaging everything you've ever wanted with excuses, patterns, and overthinking. He makes it crystal clear. Change isn't conceptual, it's experiential. You don't just understand transformation, you feel it. In your bones, in your nervous system, in that nauseating moment when your body wants to do the same thing it always does, and you don't let it. This is where meditation becomes a battlefield. You're not there to relax. You're there to strip down your default settings. You're there to train your mind like it's an out-of-control pit bull that's been pissing all over your goals for years. You're there to teach your body that stillness doesn't mean danger. It means power. So how do you prep? You learn the terrain. You get familiar with the unconscious garbage you've been carrying, the attitudes, reactions, and knee-jerk emotions that feel so normal you've mistaken them for your personality. Dispenza's approach is surgical. He doesn't just tell you to feel better. He walks you through recognizing your baseline state, catching it in the act, and intentionally choosing a new one, not once, every single day. He introduces what he calls the induction process, a methodical way of pulling your attention out of the noise and into the now. This isn't about floating off into the cosmos. It's about finally having the guts to sit with your own energy and make it obey you. You use breath. You use awareness. You scan your body like a detective, not a tourist. You remind every cell who's in charge. And then comes the identity work. You don't just write affirmations. You write eulogies for the old self. You mentally and emotionally rehearse the new you so hard, so vividly, that your body starts believing it's already real. You don't pray for change. You practice it. You rehearse gratitude for a future that hasn't arrived, not because you're delusional, but because you know that your biology has to believe it before your reality can reflect it. And guess what? Your body will resist. Your mind will rebel. Your schedule will suddenly become too busy. That's not coincidence. That's your old identity throwing a tantrum. Let it scream and keep going. This phase of the work is where most people bail, because it feels anticlimactic. There's no magic sparkles, no instant manifestations, no cosmic fireworks, just you, your breath, and the mirror. But this is the grind where legends are made, in the boring, silent daily reps of self-confrontation and neurological persistence. You're not prepping for a meditation session. You're training for war, a war against the familiar. Because the only way to create a future you've never known is to become someone you've never been. And that starts by doing things, internal things, you've never done. Not once, but over and over, until your biology finally gives in and lets the future through the door. Key takeaway: true transformation begins in preparation. If you don't lay the neurological and emotional groundwork for your new self to emerge, you'll keep falling back into the chemical memory of the old you. Master the setup, and you'll finally have the foundation to become someone your past can't touch. Favorite quote: you can't wait for that healing to feel wholeness. You have to feel wholeness for that healing to occur. Rewiring the self. Alright, time to get uncomfortable. Again, because if you've made it this far, then you're already deep in the weeds of mental deconstruction. But now comes the part no one warns you about. When the self you're trying to kill doesn't go quietly. When the ego doesn't surrender, but kicks, bites, manipulates, and gaslights you into staying the same. Welcome to the dirty work of rewiring the self. And spoiler alert, this ain't self-care Sunday with herbal tea and chakra crystals. This is war. Dr. Joe Dispenza lays it out without sugarcoating a damn thing. You don't just decide to become a new person. You have to surgically remove the old one, bit by bit, thought by thought, pattern by pattern. And if you think that sounds dramatic, that's because it is. You are, in fact, addicted to being yourself. Not in a cute Instagram affirmation way, in a neurochemical, identity-based, physiological junkie way. And this part of the work, it's withdrawal. Your body has memorized the old you. Every trigger, every overreaction, every autopilot rant, every little anxiety spiral. It's all muscle memory. You've practiced it to perfection. So now, when you show up to do your daily meditation and try to become abundant or at peace or empowered, your nervous system revolts. Who the hell is this? Your cells ask. Where's the drama? Where's the panic? Where's the emotional hangover we bathe in every morning? And here's the kicker. Most people interpret that resistance as a sign they're doing something wrong. But it's not. It's a sign you're finally disrupting the system. You're finally pulling the plug on an identity you never chose. One that was programmed into you by repetition, survival, trauma, and social imitation. So how do you rewire? You sit in the discomfort. You call your mind out on its bullshit. When it drifts into worry, you yank it back. When your body tries to shift or twitch or get up, you override it. Why? Because every time you do that, you're breaking the habit. You're telling your body you are no longer in charge. You're shifting the power dynamic. The mind becomes the master again. This is not glamorous. This is not fun. But this is where change gets real. You stop responding the same way to the same situations. You stop talking about yourself with the same limiting language. You stop participating in the rituals of the old self. And then, when the thoughts come, the ones that say, this is pointless or you're not getting anywhere, you don't argue, you observe, and let them die. This death isn't one big dramatic finale. It's a daily, boring, disciplined decapitation of your default settings. It's waking up and sitting with yourself before the world tells you who you are. It's catching the moment you start to act like the old you and stopping it cold. It's feeling the same emotional trigger and not reacting, not once, not twice, but every single time, until your body forgets how to be that person. Rewiring isn't about becoming someone new through affirmation. It's about becoming no one long enough that something new has a chance to emerge. You dismantle the personality. You clear out the emotional sediment. You stare at the abyss that used to be you and wait. Because only then, only when the old self is truly gone, can the new self be installed. And not a fake version. Not a pretend positive thinker, but a coherent, emotionally stable, biologically upgraded human who doesn't need to hope things change because they've become the change. So if you're still treating this process like a feel-good hobby, stop. This is demolition. This is extraction. This is psychological surgery. And if you're not willing to sit through the surgery, don't complain when your reality keeps serving you the same stale outcomes. This is your opportunity to reprogram the matrix, but only if you're willing to delete the virus called you. Key takeaway: you don't rewire your brain with wishful thinking. You rewire it with repetition, awareness, and relentless discipline. You unlearn the old self before the new self has room to exist. And until you dismantle the emotional signatures of your past, you will keep calling them reality. Favorite quote: when you change your energy, you change your life. Embodying the new reality. Let's finish this journey where most people never do, in the actual transformation, not the theory, not the hype, not the dopamine hit of reading another life-changing book and doing absolutely nothing about it. No, this is the end game, where you stop talking about change, stop posting about change, and actually start living as the future version of yourself, unapologetically, consistently, and without asking anyone's damn permission. Because here's the punchline of the entire book: it's not enough to visualize it, meditate on it, journal it, or feel into it. If you don't demonstrate it in your decisions, in your behavior, in your relationships, then you haven't changed. You've just upgraded your vocabulary. Dr. Joe Dispenza ends with a challenge that most people will never accept: to walk around in your life like it's already done, to become the future now. Not just in meditation, but in traffic, at work, when your partner presses your buttons, when your bank balance looks like a joke, when fear kicks in. Because if you can stay emotionally elevated then, that's when you know you're not faking it anymore. That's when the shift is real. You want to live as your future self? Then stop negotiating with your past one. This means no more reacting the same way. No more telling your old story just because it's familiar. No more gossiping, complaining, self-sabotaging, or settling for mediocrity and calling it being realistic. That's the identity you've buried. Don't go digging it back up every time life tests you. Life will test you. Oh, it absolutely will. Your environment, your body, your circumstances, all of it will try to drag you back into the familiar. You'll be triggered, tempted again, and then triggered harder. That's the price of change. You have to prove to the universe that you're serious before it gives you a damn thing. Dispenza calls this being transparent. Not transparent like oversharing your trauma online. Transparent like there's no gap between your inner world and your outer actions. Who you say you are is who you show up as, regardless of who's watching. You don't fake it till you make it. You embody it till it's inevitable. And here's the real flex. When you do this consistently, the universe bends. People show up. Opportunities appear. Synchronicities start stacking like dominoes. But not because you chased them, because you became the kind of person they're magnetized to. So many people treat manifestation like it's some magic trick. Just think positive thoughts and wait. But this work, this book, it's about embodiment, about becoming so aligned that your frequency makes reality adjust to you. It's not about what you're doing, it's about who you're being while you do it. You don't wait to feel worthy after the money comes. You feel worthy now, because worthiness is not a paycheck, it's a frequency. You don't feel love after you find a partner. You live in the emotional state of love, and suddenly your life becomes fertile ground for real connection. You stop waiting for the outer world to give you permission to feel better, and instead, you give yourself the emotional signal first. That's the secret. And the test. You want to change your life? Then change how you feel. Not after your life changes, but before. Over and over again. Until your nervous system gets the memo that this is the new normal. And when you slip, because you will, you don't spiral. You don't throw the whole identity in the trash. You recover. You remember, you recommit, and you show up again. This isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need evidence, because you are the evidence. You've read the theory, you've done the prep, you felt the fear, the resistance, the sabotage, the slipping, and if you've made it here, you know, it was never about the meditations. It was about who you become when no one's watching, who you are being right now, not when you're on your best day, but when you're in the middle of hell and still choose to act like heaven. That's what it means to live as the transformed self, and most people won't do it, but you're not most people, right? Key takeaway. You don't get the life you want by thinking about it. You get it by becoming the version of yourself who already has it, and showing up as that version until the world has no choice but to reflect it back. Favorite quote: "The act of mentally rehearsing who we want to be, intentionally changing our thoughts, actions, and feelings, is no longer a philosophical theory. It's a biological transformation." Conclusion. So, now what? You've just been handed a manual for full-blown psychological self-destruction and reconstruction. You've been exposed. Every excuse, every programmed belief, every lie you've been telling yourself about why you can't change, it's all been dragged into the light. Dr. Joe Dispenza didn't write Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself to inspire you. He wrote it to deprogram you, to annihilate your addiction to your past, to show you that your thoughts are not sacred, your emotions are not permanent, and your identity is not fate. It's just a habit. A habit you've repeated so many times. Your body thinks it's who you are, but now you know better. And knowing better means you don't get to pretend anymore. You don't get to say, "That's just the way I am." You don't get to blame your job, your trauma, your childhood, or your schedule. You don't get to keep sitting in the same chair, living the same day, calling it life. If you finish this and go right back to scrolling, complaining and manifesting on a vision board while emotionally reacting to the same BS, then don't lie to yourself. You don't want change, you want comfort. But if this shook something loose, if it pissed you off, if it cracked your ego and made you see just how much of your life has been a repeat of yesterday dressed up as today, then good. That means something inside of you is still alive, still aware, still willing to evolve. This book doesn't give you answers, it gives you a doorway. You either walk through it or stay chained to your old story. Just remember, your transformation doesn't happen while you're hyped. It happens the next time you're triggered, and you choose not to go back. It happens when nobody's watching, when it's hard, when you feel like quitting, and don't. That's where the future version of you is born. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to actually practice what's in this book instead of just listening to it like another hit of self-help dopamine, then buy the damn book. Seriously, don't just sit here waiting for the algorithm to spoon-feed you meaning. Own the work, commit to it, do it, every single day. If this cracked your skull open in the best way possible, hit that like button like it owes you money. Subscribe if you're sick of being the same version of yourself and ready to burn the old identity to the ground. Comment below, not with your favorite quote, but with the thing you're actually going to do differently starting today, if you're brave enough to call your own bluff. And remember this, you are not stuck, you are rehearsed. Stop practicing mediocrity, start rehearsing greatness. See you on the other side, or don't. Your move.